I'm mic'd up, bro. I'm Joe Mazzulla. Make sure we swing the ball, get open shots, drive and kick. A lot of threes. And one. Ref. Chandler. I want every call. No mercy. No, I want every call. I'm attacking the rim. They can't guard you. Pass. Foul? What?
Welcome to the Go Rhody podcast. I'm Scott Brand, your host. Go Rhody podcast is the leading authority of all things Rhody hoops and much more. Today we're going to talk about Sebastian Thomas, the former point guard at Rhode Island who took a sabbatical last year and played at the University of Albany. And I have Mike Kelly. Michael, which do you prefer? Either or?
Either or.
Okay, Mike, I'll call you. So I have Mike Kelly here. He's the sports reporter for the Albany Times Union. That's like the New York Times of Albany. And he's seen a lot of Sebastian that we didn't. He kind of caught our interest when there were all kinds of tweets. He started to make news, but you could tell us better than anything. And thanks for stopping by today. So,
of course, no, thanks for having me.
When did this start? Do you remember when you first heard about it, or was it just something that just didn't catch your attention? It wasn't that big of news, or when did this Sebastian craze go on?
Sure. You mean during this past season with Albany?
Yes.
Or?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, I covered the team on a, day-to-day basis. I was around them a lot. And I think with Sebastian, pretty much immediately, as soon as he had committed to Albany, obviously, coming to the America East from an A-10 program with Rhode Island. Anytime a guy transfers to, kind of more that low major level of the America East, that's somebody you identify right away as, that's going to be kind of one of the main guys on the team coming in, and really all season, I think from, you go back to last off season to night one, all the way through the campaign this past season at Albany, Sebastian was, if not the top player, he was one of the top players, pretty much from start to finish. Really had a great year. So in terms of a moment, I don't know if there necessarily was one, just because it was pretty much as soon as he showed up, and really at no point disappointed during his year here in Albany.
And did the fans come out more because he was there? Do you think he increased the attendance, or?
So that's hard to judge, because Albany actually had a new arena this past season. So the year before that, they actually didn't even play any true home games. Yeah. So they were playing at a local community college off campus. But kind of to your question, I think this past season, he was one of, 2 or 3 pretty exciting players on the team who people did get behind. And, especially there was Albany obviously ended up not having a great year, similar success level, honestly, to what Rhode Island had this past year. Yeah. But, there was a stretch during the year where they were playing well. Really? And he was definitely, somebody that people like to root for, because, he plays an exciting style of ball.
What kind of things did you notice about his game? As we saw the same thing, but in an accelerated level for you. And we're going to go through his statistics in a little while, but what made him an exciting player? Was it his driving to the hoop, or his quickness, or flash, or what in your opinion made him stand out to be a big fan?
Well, first of all, he's left-handed, and people always like the left-handed players, right?
I like that. Yeah.
I think at Albany, in terms of maybe what was different from his first couple of years at Rhode Island to going to Albany, obviously it's a different level. But he was also really given the keys to the car at Albany, and got to handle the ball, as much as he wanted, as much as he could handle, played a ton of minutes.
All that. Yeah.
Yeah, played a ton of minutes, and just with it's if we go back to being left-handed, I'll go with kind of one of the stereotypes. He was crafty. Right. He's just a really fun college guard to watch where, capable of scoring 30, but, also can run a team. And just with the volume of minutes and kind of touches he had, you really got to see that this past year at Albany. So he was just a really fun player to watch. Super productive, overall good kid too, that, he was easy to, I think if you were a fan, he was somebody who was easy to root for. If you were a media member, you didn't mind seeing somebody like that do well.
As I said, we're going to go over to the PowerPoint I have here. Going into statistics, you're going to see some drastic numbers from 2022 to 23. Look at the difference. He took 506 shots at Albany, only 188. The 3-point shot was a problem for us with him. We didn't have that many great shooters to begin with, and not having him to shoot well from the 3-point line. Now he's merging towards 30%. How was he, in your opinion, taking the 3-point shot?
That was actually, I prepared a couple statistical items.
Oh, great. Love to hear them.
One of them is the 3-point shooting because, it was after the season got done. And I saw that 29.4, and obviously it's better than he had done the first couple of years of his college career. But I was surprised that it was as low as it was.
Really?
Because it didn't match up with the eye test. Because I thought he had a very nice year shooting the ball overall. So I was going back and thinking about it. He had the ball all the time. That he took some of his threes. Were with a second left on the shot clock. He was also Albany's primary creator. So not a lot of catch and shoot opportunities. Pretty much all off the dribble on his own. But I went back too and just looked at the numbers, and obviously all the games count the same. You can't, they all matter. He had these two stretches during the year though I think they were each 3 games long where he just didn't shoot the ball well. If you remove those 2-3 game stretches, so if you take out these 6 games where he just didn't have it, and the type of team that Albany was, where if he didn't have it, he still had to take 20 shots a game. If you take those 2 games out, he shot like 35% from 3. So it's actually and that's more kind of in line with what I would have thought he would have shot this year. That was, watching him eye test wise, that was what it felt like.
Yeah, we have this message board, Keeney Blue, with the most intelligent people, and they analyze statistics just like you did. They missed that one, though. I'm going to give them a hard time. And that's the type of statistics they'd like to know. So when they're looking at that, they were still happy with the improvement. And I believe he's going to go up again because he's doing, and you start to add in his freshman year, he improved every year. And I don't know if you know this, but he wasn't even supposed to be a Division I player. And then he wasn't even supposed to play his freshman year when Rhode Island gave him a scholarship. He was redshirted. He wasn't ready. And they saw him in summer practice, and they said, this guy's ready to play. Mm-hmm. So he's always exceeded expectation, if you will. And he's continuing to do that. And Rhody fans are hoping that this continues. But I like that statistic. Another one is his foul shooting. And I don't know if you know, we were about a 65% foul shooting. It sounds better than it looks. It felt like we were shooting 44%. Look at the numbers, even his freshman year, 36.7%. Now he's at 77. Maybe he'll go up to 80. That's very healthy. You can't win too many games if you shooting 66%. And that was one of our Achilles heels, but there were others. So what about the foul line? You felt pretty good every time he went to the foul line. He took a lot of foul shots, I guess. Looks like his attempts were tripled from the year before. Initiated contact.
He was somewhere in that 6 to 7 free throws per game, average, which, especially for a guard, that's pretty high. It was definitely something that he was confident in. It's almost, and again, kind of, just kind of getting ready to come on today with you, I did not know how much he had struggled as a freshman from the foul line. Obviously, not a ton of attempts. That was, it felt like, from the time he showed up in Albany, you would have guessed he was, kind of like a lifelong sweet shooting guard. So I mean, there's definitely been a major improvement from there, because even just those sophomore year numbers for him, where he was in the 60s on free throws, that was not representative of the player that I watched this past year. So there's definitely been an upgrade in his game in that regard.
Yeah, I agree with you. And then turnovers, did you find his assist to turnover ratio was a little low? Not too bad, 1.7. You want to get into the 2 to 3s.
He had a couple games where the turnovers were definitely higher than you would like to see. I think in terms of the assist to turnover, that's a little bit of Albany's style of play. They spread teams out. It's a lot of driving kick, but it's also a lot of guys have the freedom to kind of go one-on-one. So, I think his assist to turnover and maybe a more conventional college style offense, it gets more in that 2 to 1 range than what he was. I thought one of his most impressive statistical, improvements was his usage rate for this year compared to last year. His usage rate went way up. He was deciding tons of plays, compared to obviously what he was doing the first couple of years at Rhode Island. So he had the ball in his hands all the time. And obviously he committed more, raw turnover total this year, but his turnover rate actually went down a lot. And usually that's something that's pretty consistent, regardless of how many minutes you play, you're going to turn the ball over kind of the same, at the same rate. He was somebody who this past year, even though he played a lot more, had the ball a lot more, in a percentage perspective, he actually turned the ball over less. So that was something he got better at. Obviously, it's also a different level of competition. The America East is, it's not, I don't know if it's necessarily a great defensive league. It's smaller and less athletic, obviously, than what you'll see in the A-10, but he definitely did seem like he had a marked improvement in terms of how he took care of the ball.
When was that breakout game where all the tweets came out about that? When it woke us up as Rhody fans, and we kind of felt bad, because we wanted him back, and I don't think there was an expectation that would happen.
He had some games. He was pretty consistent all year, in the teens and the 20s. He did have, he had a great game kind of toward the end of December where he had 32 points against LIU. He had another 30 game against Binghamton. I'm guessing the big one though, he had 42 against UMass Lowell.
Yes.
Which was, one of the better teams in the America East now for the last couple of years. That was also at the point in the season too where Albany's roster, they lost some key personnel during the year, where there weren't a lot of guys really left who were productive. He was one of the few left. I remember that 42-point game. I forget the exact numbers, but he shot over 50% in the game. Wow. So it wasn't just that he was, chucking. But no, he had a bunch of high scoring games. But yeah, the 42-point game against, what was one of the top teams in the league, I'd imagine would be the one that would have really popped for folks, outside of the America East, outside of Albany.
First, we'll do by the numbers, and this is really important. Having a healthy guy, and he's always been a healthy guy. He's had his injuries, but we've had some injury trouble. 32 games, he started all his games. Having that 19.6 is a lot. The thing that surprised me, he wasn't a first team guy, was he?
He wasn't, and I think the America East does that, probably more by record than.
Yeah, it's political here in Atlantic 10 too.
Sure, you see that with some of the leagues. So I mean, so that Albany did not, they were, they barely made the postseason in the league. I think if they were, a top 5 team, he's a first teamer, no doubt. So again, there was probably 6 or 7 candidates for that he was one of, and I think their team success made it, relatively easy to drop him to the second line.
He was a scoring champion, which says a lot. I don't care what team you're on. Being a scoring champion, you have to you have to get the ball in the basket to be a scoring champion. You had some competition out there. I looked at the teams that you had. There were some, like you said, UMass Lowell and Vermont, to name a few. I like his workhorse. He had 7 games, 40 plus minutes. He's a candidate to play for Tibbs on the Knicks. And then 21, 35 minutes or more. I would use that in a lot of cases. I'd keep him on the court. Does he look fresh like Josh Hart, where he could play 48 minutes and then overtime and he doesn't look tired? Is that how he looked to you?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it kind of became a little bit of a running joke in covering the team was, I think every week there was talk about, maybe they should figure out a way to limit his minutes. And it never happened. But it also just, when you were watching them, like, I don't remember ever really thinking he looked all that tired. So, he wore the minutes well, I guess. And again, too, I mean, he's playing all those minutes while, I think we were saying earlier, he shot 6 or 7 free throws every game. So, he wasn't shying away from contact and, taking the easy way out on some possessions. So definitely an Iron Man type player.
How did he get to Albany?
I think, he has a little bit of a funny story of it where when he got into the portal from Rhode Island, and he's told this story. Albany, their coach has told this story where he didn't respond to their first few phone calls because he just had no interest in going to Albany because they had a really bad year the year before. They only won like 5 or 6 games. Like it was that level of bad. But he got connected eventually. They were persistent with him. I think he enjoyed that. I think he liked that they, stayed after him. And I think, just kind of once they got talking, one thing led to another. And, I do think too that, I think a huge part of him coming to Albany was they told him, like, look, we're going to give you the ball. You're going to get to shoot, you're going to get to dribble, you're going to get to pass, you're going to get to lead your own team and, show what you can do. I think that was really appealing to him. Once they crossed that initial hurdle of him not picking up his phone for them.
Oh, really? Well, he sounds like a very good negotiator because he made a similar deal possibly with Archie Miller to get a little more control than playing a rigid offense. And so he sounds like if basketball afterwards and goes into the business world, I'd like him on my side negotiating. He's done well for himself. Again, thanks for coming on. You're getting us even more excited to have him. I learned quite a bit from you, and I'm not surprised because you watched every game. I always end it like this. When it comes to Rhody sports, it's always go Great Danes. Go Rhody. Okay. Thanks again, Mike, and we'll be in touch.
For having me.
Okay. Bye now.